Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to take another example where b is greater than c times sine of b, but b is less than c. So here I have taken an example where b is 9 cm, c is 6 times square root of 3 cm, and the angle b is 30 degree. So in this example, we have to solve for the three other attributes of this triangle, right? So we have to solve the triangle. And what are the three other attributes? Is the side length a, the angle a, and the angle c. Those are the three attributes that we have to calculate from this given information. Now when we are given an example like this, we have to immediately recognize that this is one of the ambiguous cases. Now this is an ambiguous case where angle B, the provided angle B, is actually an acute angle, and then we want to see if B is equal to C times sine of B or if B is greater than C times sine of B. So let's quickly check that. Now what would be the value of C times sine of B? Well, C times sine of B would be like this. In this case, C is 6 times square root of 3, so I am writing that here, times sine of B, that is sine of 30 degree. So this will be equal to 6 times square root of 3 times 1/2, and that is equal to 3 times square root of 3, which is approximately equal to 5.19. And here B is actually 9 cm. So definitely B is greater than C times sine of B, because 9 cm would definitely be greater than 5.19. So this is the scenario where B is greater than C times sine of B. But if you look at B and C, B is actually less than C, because C is 6 times square root of 3, which is 10 point something, and B is 9 cm. So B is less than C. That means we are talking about a scenario which is like this. Let me highlight by a pink box here. That is the scenario we are talking about in this example, where B is greater than C times sine of B, however B is less than C. So now let's try to solve the triangle. From the theory video, we know that the value of the side length A is kind of like this. A is equal to C times cosine of B plus or minus square root of B squared minus C squared times sine squared of B. So there are two possible values of A in this case, because there will be two solutions. We have two real values of A. So let's try to calculate the two values of A. If we consider the first value to be A sub 1, so we can say A sub 1 is equal to C times cosine of B, and let's take the plus sign here, and within the square root it would be B squared minus C squared times sine squared of B. And if we plug in the values of these variables here, so what do we get then? C is actually 6 times square root of 3 times cosine of B, that would be cosine of 30 degree, plus square root of B squared. B is actually 9, so this is 9 squared minus C squared. Now what is C? C is actually 6 times square root of 3, so 6 times square root of 3 whole squared, that is C squared, and then sine squared of 30 degree. And if we simplify this, we are going to get 6 times square root of 3 times cosine of 30 degree, that is square root of 3 over 2, plus within the square root we have 9 squared would be 81 minus 6 times square root of 3 whole squared would be 108 times sine squared of 30 degree, that would be 1/2 squared. And if we simplify this, then we are going to get 9 plus the first term will become 9, because you see the numerator is becoming 18 and we have 2 in the denominator, so that will make it 9. So 9 plus square root of, we have 81 minus 108 times 1/4, and that will be equal to 9 plus square root of 81 minus 27, that would be 54, and this can be written as 9 plus 54 can be factored into 9 times 6, and if the 9 comes out of the square root it becomes 3, so that would be 3 times square root of 6. So we have found the value of A sub 1, which is the first value of the side length A, the larger value. There's going to be a smaller side length A and a larger side length A. So far we have calculated the larger side length A and we are calling it as A sub 1. Next we are going to calculate the smaller side length A. Let's call it A sub 2. Now what will be the value of A sub 2? Well, the only difference would be in the plus sign and the minus sign. In this case we are going to take the minus sign after the C times cosine of B. We are going to take the minus sign. So now the value will be exactly same. It would be 9 minus 3 times square root of 6. Think about it. Because in this case, we are going to take the minus sign after the c times cosine of b and before the big square root. So the only difference would be in the sign here, because the first term evaluated to 9 and the second term evaluated to 3 times square root of 6, and in this case we are going to use the minus sign. So the value of a sub 2 will be 9 minus 3 times square root of 6. Now you realize that in this case we are going to have two solutions. That means the angle A will also have two possible values and angle C will also have two possible values. So let's call them like this. We are going to call them, let's say when we use the value of A sub 1, let's say we are going to get the angle as uppercase A sub 1 and the angle C would be uppercase C sub 1. And when we use the value of A sub 2, let's assume that we are going to get the angle as uppercase A sub 2 and the C angle would be uppercase C sub 2. And with that naming style, let's proceed with the calculation of the angle A and angle C. So let's first use the sine law. From the sine law we can write it like this: A sub 1 over sine of A sub 1 is equal to B over sine of B, and from here we can say then sine of A sub 1 will be equal to A sub 1 over B times sine of B. And now let's plug in the values. What is A sub 1? Well, that is actually 9 plus 3 times square root of 6 over B is actually 9 centimeters, so that is 9 here in the denominator, and times sine of B, that is sine of 30 degree, and this can be written as 9 plus 3 times square root of 6 over 9 times 1/2, and that can be written as 9 plus 3 times square root of 6 over 18. And if we take 3 as a common factor out, then this can be written as 3 times 3 plus square root of 6 over 3 times 6, and these 3 and these 3 they will cancel out each other, so we are going to be left with 3 plus square root of 6 over 6. So from here, what will be the value of A sub 1, the angle A sub 1? Well, it will be sine inverse of this quantity, and we can say this is approximately equal to 65 degree and 16 minute. So we have been able to find the value of the angle A sub 1, and then let's quickly calculate the value of C sub 1. C sub 1 will be equal to 180 degree minus the sum of B and A sub 1. Now what is B here? Well, B is actually 30 degree in our example, and A sub 1, so we are going to use A sub 1 here, which is 65 degree and 16 minute, and this is equal to 180 degree minus 95 degree and 16 minute, and that will be equal to 84 degree and 44 minute. So let's make a quick summary note here that angle A sub 1 is equal to 65 degree and 16 minute, and angle C sub 1 is equal to 84 degree and 44 minute. And the side length A sub 1 is of course 9 plus 3 times square root of 6. I should use the unit as centimeter because in this example we are using centimeter as the unit of length. So this is one set of the solution. Next we are going to calculate the other set. And for the second set of solution, we are going to use the value of the side length A sub 2, which is the shorter side length of A, right? That will be 9 minus 3 times square root of 6. That's the value we are going to use to solve for the second triangle. So if we use A sub 2 as 9 minus 3 times square root of 6, then using the sine law, we can write it like this. And from here, if we say, okay, then sine of A sub 2 will be equal to A sub 2 over B times sine of B. And let's plug in the values here. A sub 2 is actually equal to 9 minus 3 times square root of 6 over B is actually 9 centimeter times sine of 30 degree. And that will be equal to 9 minus 3 times square root of 6 over 9 times 1/2, and that will be equal to 9 minus 3 times square root of 6 over 18, and we can write it as 3 times 3 minus square root of 6 over 3 times 6, and from here these 3 and these 3 they will cancel out each other, and we are going to be left with 3 minus square root of 6 over 6. So that is the value of sine of A sub 2. Then what would be the value of A sub 2? Well, that will be equal to sine inverse of this quantity here, which is 3 minus square root of 6 over 6, and that will be equal to 5 degree and 16 minute, approximately, of course, 5 degree and 16 minute. Now using this value of a sub 2, let's also calculate the value of c sub 2. That will be 180 degree minus the sum of b and a sub 2. Well, b is actually 30 degree and a sub 2 is actually 5 degree and 16 minute, and this is equal to 180 degree minus 35 degree and 16 minute, and this is actually equal to 144 degree and 44 minute. So our second set of solution would be like this. A sub 2 is equal to 5 degree and 16 minute. C sub 2 is equal to 144 degree and 44 minute, and the side length A sub 2 is equal to 9 minus 3 times square root of 6 centimeter. So those are the two sets of values for the three remaining attributes. In the original example, we had been provided with three attributes: the side length B, the side length C, and the angle B, and based on that we knew that we are going to have two solutions, meaning two possible triangles, and here are the two sets of the three other attributes for the two possible triangles. And of course, along with this, our original values will go together. For example, I can write right here that our B is equal to 9 centimeter and C is equal to 6 times square root of 3 centimeter, and the angle B was equal to 30 degree. And similarly here also let me make the same note that side length B is equal to 9 centimeter as given in the example. Side length C is equal to 6 times square root of 3 centimeter and angle B was 30 degree. So that is the set of attributes for the first solution triangle, and then here is the set of attribute for the second solution triangle. So those are the two sets of solution for the two possible triangles for this particular example. In the next video, we'll take another example for the next category. I hope everything made sense here. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.